Good evening. Welcome to SON Ministries. Next week, we're going to be meeting live at the United Methodist Church, Wesley United Methodist Church, for a community Thanksgiving service. So that would be actually taking up at place at 6 to 7. So encourage everyone to join in that community service. So today, though, we're not going to live stream it. No, you come. No, it's live. Meaning you come in person and you get to experience the community service. Today we're going to talk about blind spots. Before I go into that, I want to kind of look into something. When we look at Jesus, normally we think of God, right? We look at when we read the scriptures, when we read the Gospels, I think many times we lose focus of understanding of how he came. He did not come as God. He came in the flesh as a man. So the things and how we receive some of the men can be the same way we receive Jesus. So in the way I see it is you can take and replace Jesus in there as a pastor or somebody in authority, a spouse, a parent. Things got to be tested because what Jesus spoke was from the Father. He didn't speak anything on his own accord. But there were people that had a problem with him. It's like, we know where he is from. Why is this written in there? Because today, that still can happen. Well, we know where this prophet, this pastor's from. Look at this city. He can't be any good. And so they weren't able to receive anything from Jesus because they thought of the city where he was supposedly born. But they didn't look any farther. They just rejected because of something. The something can change in our lives of why we reject it. Oh, they're not from a good denomination. They come out of a denomination or whatever that doesn't preach the word. So all the others, all the reasons can be added up. And when God's trying to speak through them, you can reject them. And it might be very important on what they say. I want you to have that in your mind as I go through this study. Our verse where we're going to start out is in Mark. So it's Mark 14. And it's at verse 30. Jesus said to him, "Assuredly I say to you that today, even this night, before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. A word was spoken to Peter. Peter should have known better. He was with Jesus. But his instance is, no, that just can't be. There's no way I would deny him. Even if all the others deny him, I wouldn't deny him. So in this situation, I want to point out, it might not be a word that you get from the Lord, but it might be somebody that addresses something. Hey, you are going in the wrong direction. You are in danger. You're going to go around this path if you don't straighten up. A warning is given. The thing about this is it was a blind spot to Peter. He couldn't comprehend it. There's no way I could do that. See, sometimes we don't know ourselves. And then that's why God puts people in our lives. They're like driving a car. And the people that God's put in our lives are like rear view mirrors or side mirrors. We reject what they say. It's like taking a chunk out of that mirror. The more we take away the people that are in our lives that God's put in to address things, the more we reject because of what they say, that, no, this couldn't happen to me. That is just not true. The more of that mirror we take away. And before long, we start moving in another lane and not seeing the car on the side, and we cause a collision. Peter ended up in a collision. The thing that he denied that he would ever do, he did. This wasn't the only time that Jesus came to him and told him that. In the Garden of Gethsemane, Peter was one of the 3 that came closer, but they slept. And Jesus again told them, stay awake, pray, lest you enter into temptation. For the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Look it up. I don't got them. I just got this message like 20, 30 minutes before the service, so I don't got all these verses written down. But in the Garden of Gethsemane, Peter couldn't understand, I wouldn't deny him. But Jesus seen it. But he didn't heed. Peter did not heed it. Until finally, the word came true. When he denied him 3 times, when the rooster crowed twice, he recognized, I was warned. And yet I still fell into this. And it was devastating for him. There's so many times that we can be getting warnings. But sometimes they're not accepted. They're not received. Or there can be even words that God's speaking over your life. He uses people to speak over your life. See, the important thing is to learn and connect with the Spirit. See, Peter, when this was spoken, used his flesh to judge. It's like, no, I could never do that. if you would have went back in time to with David, and you would have asked him when he became king, you think you could ever commit adultery? Do you think you could ever kill somebody for somebody else's wife? He would have said, "No, I could never have done that." See, we have blind spots that we can't see in ourselves. But God brings people to try to address these. Jesus came to Peter. He even came to Judas. Judas was warned multiple times, "One of you will betray me." Even at the table, Judas knew what he was going to do. But instead of receiving the word, he rejected it. We need to be connected to people. We need to receive from people. We also need to test what they say. Much of this, if we look, deals with authorities that God has given us in our life. If you look at Aaron, who was the authority over Aaron? Anyone know? Moses. And how was Moses to be to Aaron? It was to be as God. That's how God spoke over Moses. And what happened when we decide, hey, I don't think this guy knows any better. I think we can be just as equal with him. I don't think he's all that he says. He's married somebody that you're not supposed to marry. Did God accept that from Aaron? It's like, well, Moses, you can't be a ruler over us. Look at what you've done. See, it's the same sin that what happened with Jesus when the people would not receive Jesus. They didn't receive Jesus because they found some kind of fault. It wasn't even in a person, it was in a city. That nothing good could come from there. You can reject the city and reject the people that's in it. And those people that are in it might be your answer that you're supposed to receive from. Jonah probably wouldn't have been a normal person to be accepted from Nineveh. Could have been possibly as if if Jonah would have just obeyed, they might have never even repented. But God used it for redemption of Nineveh. We all can learn things from people we don't accept. Some of the authorities that God's put, they're not righteous men. But yet, God can be speaking through them. How many know that God was speaking through Nebuchadnezzar? Not necessarily the words, but the actions that he took were carrying out God's plans. God is in authority. God is in control of the authorities. And he can speak, and he will speak through different authorities. Yes, we are to judge them. We judge the word that is spoken by what spirit, the spirit that's behind it. What is the spirit coming out? Just because they're not a believer doesn't mean you should just reject the words that they're speaking. It was dangerous when you were under Saul's rule, King Saul, to just ignore his commands. Because according to God, he was anointed king. Because once you're anointed king, even though he's rejected him, there was still anointing. We see that from David. David refused to lay a hand on Saul, and he served him as to the Lord. He respected the words that he spoke. When Saul even used it against him, trying to say, hey, go kill this number of Philistines, hoping that David would die, he gladly did it. We have many different examples throughout the Word of how people were moved by other people. That they followed, they changed direction, they were blinded themselves, but they were able to have their eyes open because of somebody else. We look at Elijah and his servant. His servant didn't see anything, but his eyes was open when Elijah spoke to open up his eyes. If Elijah wasn't there, his eyes would never have been opened. God places people in our lives to open up our eyes. Because we don't see everything. We see in part. We don't have the whole picture. If we think we got it together, we think we know it, you're in danger. We see in part. We might think, hey, I am so good of a driver. I don't need these mirrors. Because see, what happens is we think others are addressing our character, is saying there's a problem with us because we have to look at others. So it's kind of like a pride thing there. In reality, we need others because we are blinded ourselves. We need to start listening to others. We need to start listening to our authorities and judge by the Spirit of God. Judge righteously. Don't just cast it off like Peter did. Hey, no, this could never happen. That's just not true. I mean, think about Peter's situation. You're going to deny me 3 times. This is somebody that walked with Jesus, talked with Jesus, been around his miracles. All the others as well, they say they would never desert him. Peter wasn't the only one that deserted Jesus. They all did. They all ran. We have 2 different stories of 2 specific, though. What was different with Peter was that he not only ran, he denied him. It doesn't say that any of the others denied him. And then we have another story of another one that betrayed him. The rest, the 10, fled. They were all scattered. Just like it says in Mark 14:27, says, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. We can learn from this. We can judge ourselves. Hey, why am I rejecting what this person's saying? And then we can judge ourselves in the area that, hey, I don't agree with this, but I better keep my mind open that it might be true. If somebody's trying to warn you, don't react from it. Peter reacted from it, and he resisted to be able, the change that was needed. Instead of taking thought of what was said, it's like, Jesus, I can't see how I could ever do this. And then take advice, go to God from this. Okay, this was brought up. Is this from you? I don't see how I could do this. And be on guard, especially if it's a warning. See, if the warning is something that you wouldn't want to do in the first place, like, for example, how many of you guys want to just deny Jesus? But if you were warned, it would be a good idea to, hey, put that in check in your back of your mind. I will not deny him. There's a word that was spoken, and I will not fall onto that word that I will reject him. I will set my guard over my heart. It's kind of like this. If somebody called the police, hey, we got some suspicious activity happening around the bank. I think somebody's going to rob the bank. The police should take it, go over there and check it out, wouldn't they? That's what it's like. If you have a guard, somebody's telling you something about it, send the police to your heart. Check this out, Lord. Search me and see if there be any wicked way in me. Check this out, Lord. Notice, Peter would have been the wrong person to check it out. He's already made the decision, no, this can't happen. Peter needs to call somebody else to inspect. And that's where God comes in. And he should have known from Jesus, because he already knew who Jesus was, that this word is to be taken very seriously. So in summary, watch out for the warnings, even if they come from unlikely sources, even if they are the sources are not what you would normally want to accept. Because God can speak from anyone. He spoke through a donkey before. It's when something is being warned about you, even if you don't agree with it. Set out the search party to see if there be any wicked way in you. Because they don't call it blind spots for nothing. A blind spot you can't see. You can even try looking at it yourself and observing. You can try searching yourself, but the problem with blind spots are that we are so immune to them. It's kind of like in a train. When you have a train that is right in your backyard, tracks, that a train comes every single day, eventually that train you will not even hear anymore, even though it's right in your backyard, because you become so immune to it that it's like it goes out of your memory. It's like it becomes so natural that you don't notice anymore. Until somebody goes, you know, there's something in your backyard. What would be in my backyard? And you don't have it in your memory because it's like you just become so used to it. And finally, when you go, oh, it's a train. Yeah, that's nothing. But to other people, it definitely is. And the question is, what is it to God? Hope this message has blessed you. Encourage you to come to the community service at Wesley United Methodist Church next Wednesday at 6 to 7. And God bless you.